Hi there, my name is Toby and today I want to talk about corruption. Now everyone knows about corruption, but I want to ask a very serious philosophical question. And it's a question that we don't often think about, but I think we have to. And the question is this: could we ever have a world without corruption? Without any corruption? Is it possible? And what would that look like? Now, okay, we cannot have a perfect world, first of all, because there is chaos. There is spontaneity, unpredictability. We know that. It's natural. That's part of nature. So we can't say, yes, we will have a perfect world of perfect order and perfect harmony. That we cannot have. But could we have one without corruption? Because corruption is purely man-made. That is human interactions. And corruption just makes the whole thing so much worse. So much worse. And it's completely unnecessary. Why have we got it? So let's just say theoretically it was possible. If we could have a world without corruption, that would mean there would be no crime. No crime means there would be no security forces. You would need no method of controlling people. Think about it. If there was no corruption, there'd be no crime, there would be no security forces. And in fact, there would be no need of government. The very question of government would never arise. Because if there was crime, then you need security forces. You need a method of locking people up because they're making too much trouble. And then, of course, you need a system of law and a system of government to keep control of all that. Someone has to keep track of everything. But if there was no crime, there'd be no security forces and no need of any government. And it's a very important thing to understand because we all must know this, but where is most of the corruption in the world? Where is most of the corruption? It's in government. It's a catch-22. Because there is crime, we need security forces, we need government. But the security force and the government simply exponentially increase the level of corruption and crime. Okay, you've got to do some deep thinking to see this. Now, let's go back another step. What is corruption? What is corruption? What is it? So you're talking about could we have none? How do we reduce it? But what is it? And I put it to you, corruption is not a natural thing. There are only two ways of getting corrupt. One is you learn it. You are taught to be corrupt. There's no corruption in babies. It's only when they get a bit older. So at the beginning, there's no corruption. Where does it come from? We are taught it. We witness it, or we are actively, directly taught it. So it is a learnt thing. Second way there can be corruption is physiologically. You can have a biological or a deficiency in the brain that reduces your empathy. We call that a psychopath. So if you've got that, there's not much can be done about it. It's physiological, pathological. So you are born with that. Maybe 1 or 2% of psychopaths are pathological, something like that. It's a tiny amount. But I still put it to you, if we were born with a full, healthy body, such a deficiency would not arise. Okay, so it's another theoretical idea, but if we could all be born with full, high energy, healthy body, complete, such the deficiency of the brain would not arise. You couldn't have a psychopath. Plus, if you were never taught corruption, you never witnessed it, it would never arise. So again, this is totally idealistic, theoretical, but it's worth thinking about. In the world we've got today, it's become ever so complicated. We've got layers and layers of corruption going on. Layers of them. So many layers. Because this has built up over centuries, and the system of governance has built up over centuries in all different ways, the layers of corruption have built up with it. Now, it stands to reason. It stands to reason. And the most corrupt people are the most ruthless people, the most power-hungry people, and they always seek positions of power. That's naturally what they do. Once you've got corruption, that's what it does, by definition. See, again, corruption is, let's put it another way, corruption is still ignorance. Ignorance. You have a limited idea about yourself. It's narcissism, narcissistic. You have a limited idea about yourself and about power, and you just want more power over other people. You cannot understand that it is limited, and in the search for power over people is not as good as the search for cooperation and harmony. You will get more productivity with cooperation than you will with a hierarchy with power. But they can't see that. They can't see that. It's ignorance. Ignorance. So these guys rise to the top. And government itself is a system of power, control. So these guys naturally rise up through the power structure. And if you've got this over centuries, handed down through their families, through generations and generations, it stands to reason that the majority of these power systems are still here from generations ago. Why would they ever relinquish the power? They'll just find ways to keep the power going. But as people get more cleverer, we wake up more, we get wiser, they have to find more and more clever ways to maintain their position of power. And that's what we've got now. We've got this very elaborate infrastructure all over the world in slightly different variations of it, different variations of government, trying to maintain control over corruption. But of course, it has created and perpetrated far higher, exponentially higher corruption. But don't forget, that's the way government works. It's supposed to reduce corruption. That's why we need it. So that's why they always tell us that. Yeah, we're reducing corruption. But what do we see? We just see more and more corruption. We never see less. Never see less corruption. It's always more. Always more. And now we're getting to the stage, now we're getting to the stage where the governments are sort of unifying. We've got globalism now. Because, we want worldwide corruption-free. We want a corruption-free world. The only way to do that is to have a single global government. That will take care of it all, make sure it's all safe. And now what they're doing is, of course, building up a whole technology to keep us all safe. We're going to have our own digital IDs. We'll have blockchain money, controlled by this global government. We'll have records of everything. Everything is going to be watched, recorded. Every single thing. The entire internet is going to be monitored. Just because that means we'll have no corruption. We'll have no corruption. But herein lies the problem. It's still based on government. It's still based on government. And government, there is no way of having government without corruption. There is none. Again, I have to take it all the way back. If there was no corruption, there would never be a need for government. It would never arise. The government only arises because there is corruption. Now, they sort of also know this. They know this. That's why they think, let's have democracy. Let's have democracy. That's more like we all have a say in it. We need a government, but we can all choose that government. Okay. This is a difficult one. It's a difficult one. Because if the government is imposed upon us, an autocracy, most of us can see, that's a control system. That's not good. That's corruption. Most of us can see that. But democracy, no, that's not corruption. That's the way we have to do it. That's the way we have to do it. But we all know it as well. We know it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's the best we've got. It's the best we've got. Now the trouble is, at the end result of democracy, is still centralized power. It's the method we get it seems a bit fairer. Yeah, it's a bit fairer. But the end result is still centralized power. They got 4 years of power, or whatever they got. And that is, of course, open to corruption. It always is. It always is. Because it is power, corruption is the search for power. So once you create a government, it is a magnet. It is a magnet for corruption. Now, there is one way out of this. There is one way out of this. Well, there are two ways out of this. Two ways out of this. If we want to move towards a society without corruption, we have to rise up our education. We actually have to become more wise spiritual beings. We have to advance our consciousness. We have to increase our awareness. We have to improve, we have to grow, evolve our emotional maturity. So that's one thing we have to do, and we all have to do it, and that improves our education. But it's not an education that we've got, not the education we've got. Again, the education we've got is still built up through corruption. But the second thing we have to do, because the world is so big, so complicated now, we do need an infrastructure, a method of maintaining records of everything. So we will need some technology. And interestingly enough, you see what they're building now is this global Big Brother digital system. That's to keep track of everything, make sure no one is corrupt. But of course, we can't guarantee the few groups of people at the top controlling the Big Brother system. Are they corrupt? You see, but here's the thing. If we could have this same system, this same global Big Brother system, I'm calling it Big Brother system, but here's the big but. It was not centralized, it was decentralized. And it was totally impossible to centralize. Now what we're moving to is what you might call a true democracy, because everyone on this network would have their own say. They're part of this decentralized network. And the network is of course run by blockchain, exactly the same as what the globalists want to do, but this would be totally decentralized blockchain. No centralized power could ever take control of it. Now you're leading towards a method of transferring the infrastructure over to something that is closer to be corruption proof. Again, closer to it. And there are other layers we could build on this. Again, you would still need IDs, digital IDs, but you would need that for yourself. You want to know who you are and what you own, what is your property. You will need to know these things, but you will also have complete and total autonomy and privacy. It would also be totally private. Now, that's the system I'm working on. I'm calling it Entify, and it's essentially a blockchain ecosystem with some new technology. There's some new, very clever technology that we've got. And you can check out my website where I talk about it in more detail. But I'm calling this true independence technology. It's essentially the alternative to the globalist Big Brother, state. But it's completely in the hands of the individual. Every single individual will be a registered user on that decentralized blockchain, and they were all completely equal. So you could make decisions about things. For example, you could have a vote for something that you wanted to do something big, a large community or a country wanted to do something big. You could have a genuine vote. authentic vote, no corruption involved, no faking the vote. Everyone just votes through their mobile phone, their smartphone, because it is their guaranteed identity. And it's totally hacker proof. Again, you have to look at how this is hacker proof and also scammer proof. There's no cheating available in this. No fake accounts. You cannot have a fake account. Again, this is all to do with the new technology. So if essentially what I'm saying here is Entify is a true independent technology, and it is the alternative to government itself. See, government is required to keep track of everything, but we put the power into the hands of a few people. And you might be lucky. You have a good one. Oh, I've got a good leader, a good politician. They're doing a good job. Occasionally you might get a good one. But overall, it's always corrupt. It's exponentially corrupt because it's power. And the narcissist is always attracted to power. And power now is connected to money and greed. It's all together with money. You can't help it. But you see, if you could have a system without money and a system without government, now that's interesting. All you need is one step further to make sure there's no corruption either. That's what Entify would be. It's corruption-free technology. It does not allow corruption. You see, it will not even allow theft. You cannot steal anything in this system because every item will be logged onto the blockchain. It's the same thing like the globalists want to do. They want to keep track of all the things you buy. This system, Entify, will keep track of everything everyone buys, but it will be completely decentralized and private. No one else will know what you've got, and no one else will be able to steal what you've got because you only buy and sell it by scanning it. You personally have to do it. So if someone wants, if you want to sell it for cash and you scan it, you'll see, well, you don't own that. The registered owner will be on the item. So your assets will be perfectly safe. Cannot steal an asset. Your car, your house, it will be registered or connected to your blockchain identity. So no one can steal it because you've got the record on your blockchain identity. Again, have to look up my website to see more about this. It's the beginning stages of this technology. We're only just starting, but we're getting very close to having a product. And this will begin with a smartphone. We'll have our own smartphone and our own communications network and our own method of creating this secure, it will be a secure social media network, communications network, chat network. Totally private, totally secure. And guaranteed no fake accounts. Because everyone on the network will have to have their valid identity. They will have to create their own blockchain identity. Totally self-sovereign. That's the way I'm calling it. You create it. You are the only one who has access to it. Remember, this is government-free technology. It's the technology that will liberate us from any government simply because you won't need it anymore. So the government are trying to create the same thing. The globalists are trying to create the same thing quickly. But then their one, it will be totally centralized. They control it. The bankers will still control it all. And we'll be, if they don't want, and they'll be able to access every single one of our wallets from a centralized location. They can switch off your money, switch off your identity. This one, Entify, no one can do that. No one can get into yours. It will be impossible ever to centralize it. Again, very hard to understand this. You could not ever take control of the network. There's no way. It is the most decentralized network ever that could be created. Or at least the vision I have of this technology. It's going to take a while to actually get there. But the technology is here. It can now be done. It's just a question of doing it. So this leads me then back to the beginning. Is it possible to have a corruption-free society? Well, yes. One, if we have the education and we have self-development. And two, if we have the technology. And we need the technology now because we need to change over. Now we've got a society now on a corruption scale of, I would say we're on I would say 75-80% corrupt society. And maybe we've got 10, 15, 25% is pretty good. But if we can we want to convert over to, say, bring it down to 50-50. 50% corruption free. So there's an interface. We have to slowly move across. But once this system keeps going, the technology takes off, the corruption level will reduce. And then, of course, it requires education, like I said, personal development, and it requires health and fitness. We all have to find methods of healing. Technology has to be put towards healing. Now, you might think it is. It's not. It's not really. See, I'm doing healing, but what I'm doing is not taken seriously. This is a whole branch of science that there are a lot of people take this seriously, but mainstream science does not. And all of this alternative medicine has been discredited a long time ago. If you want to look into it, it's the Flexner Report. And the Flexner Report did a lot of work to discredit all herbal medicine, natural medicine. And this was commissioned by the big oil tycoons. They paid for this a long time ago. And then they started up with their petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. It's all built up through corruption. So we have got a lot of suppressed science. And if you look at it, the suppressed science is all the stuff that is higher technology, that would be good for us. So we've got to bring that back. And we also got to improve our environment. Stop polluting the environment. But it's not the pollution that they're telling us. They're telling us a story so that lets them pollute. They're doing all the pollution. It's not the obvious pollution they're telling us. They're blaming us for it. No, they're doing it. They're releasing all these forever chemicals. They're releasing all these toxins all over the place. They're the ones doing it. So we have to stop all that and regrow the planet Earth. Bring back the Mother Nature. We have to do this. And we can only do this in a small way, small communities, get on and get our own farms going, look after the land again. So there's a slow process to do all that, but people are starting. But I think this could be possible. If we could create the technology, together with education, we can get the ball rolling. Technology is the key. Corruption-proof technology, which I'm working on. If that gets going, we will see a reduction in corruption. And people will join it because they think, oh, that one's much better. You see, it would also be fairer. There would be a more even distribution of wealth. It would be a true free market economy. It's still capitalist, but not corrupt capitalism. You see, we've got capitalism now, but they're even calling it stakeholder capitalism. But it's corporate. It's all corporate. It's all cronyism. It's more like a mafia system. It's all behind the scenes. Money changing hands behind the scenes. We all know it's money changing hands behind the scenes, but we're not looking far enough behind the scenes. It's quite far back. It goes all the way back to the very creation of money itself. The very creation of government itself. It's all built hand in hand over generations. So many layers of corruption built up over a long time. And it's going to take time to backtrack on them. But I think it's possible. And this is seriously worth thinking about. It's the philosophy of, is it possible to have a world without corruption? Totally idealistic, but worth contemplating. What would it be like? So thank you so much for listening. Please do leave me any comments or questions. Please put them on a notepad and then copy and paste, because sometimes YouTube deletes the comments. It's not me. I never delete a comment. I value all your comments. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this made sense, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.